Greetings and salutations, fine people. I'm Patty Alvarez. Welcome to The Good Soul, a show where we'll have supercharged chats with everyday humans from all walks of life and unpack what in their story will inspire us all. We'll extract the untapped wisdom, distill it, and serve it up to you in all the right ways that will engage, enlighten, and most of all, inspire growth within your soul. I think people are awesome. So join me on this journey through the hearts and minds of ordinary people to uncover the good soul within you. This is The Good Soul. Hello, universe. Welcome to The Good Soul. We are on episode 27, and I'm so excited to welcome back Christine Patterson. Welcome back, Christine.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. This story is probably one of the stories I'm most honored. I don't know if excited is the word, but it's really something one sentence into your story and I was riveted. So let me tease you with the title of this story. We named it, well, I originally was going to name the podcast A Mom and Her Hero Baby, but we decided to edit it and change it to A Mom and Her Warrior Baby. So Christine is the mother to Silas, who Silas is about to turn 3 years old on Saturday. Yeah. What a miracle. And Silas has gone through a succession of issues and ordeals, which is basically all health related, why we're here, to learn a little bit more. I just want to intro this by saying we had a really interesting, quick conversation. And what you had said was, what I had said first is with MS, I don't like when people say this. I don't like people ask that. And I think this is why I want more than anything to have this episode with you. Not only to kind of enlighten everybody on what to say and not to say, but also to get to have everybody develop this understanding. Because I think the number one thing people want to say is, I could never do that, right? Yeah. Is what you said. How do you do? I don't know how you do that. Yeah. Well, of course you're going to do it. And it's examples like you. Heroes like you, right? Selfless and brave and just, I guess, tireless would be a word, to protect your son and give him the best life you possibly can. That will set the example for us all, right? So what do they say? I'm sure you heard this saying, God doesn't give us anything that we can't handle. That's for sure. Right. So let me open with this. Before we go any further, Christine is also a fellow WSIC personality. Yes. She is the host of WSIC's I Heart Mooresville, which is aired on 105.9 on Tuesdays between 11 and 12, where we talk about all local fun events, which leads me into your other hat that you wear is you are the event. Tell me the formal title.
The Arts and Events Manager for the town of Mooresville.
Okay. So, right. So you work directly for the town of Mooresville. Would that be a sector of the Parks and Rec? I know I should have known this.
Yeah. We're a division of Parks and Recreation. We say Parks and Recreation is where the fun begins. Mm-hmm. And what is more fun than, hosting events and really creating that, the social capital, we call it, the things that make people want to live and work and play in Mooresville, creating those community engagement opportunities.
Yeah. And enjoying each other instead of fighting each other, fighting with each other over who we're voting for, right? To really understand what's important is to just bring everybody together and continue to create unity and joy in the hearts and minds of all of those around us. So thank you for adding that. Thank you for doing that. So let's start. Let's talk about Silas. I just want you to go with this. Tell me where you start where you want to start.
So Silas, as we mentioned, is going to turn 3 this weekend. Silas had a really rough beginning. I had a healthy pregnancy. We really didn't expect any of what was about to happen. And I always think back and, would I've been more prepared to deal with any of this if I had known that there were issues during my pregnancy? And I don't really know the answer to that. I don't know if I would have wanted to know or not want to have known.
What a great question, Christine.
Yeah, it's really hard. It happened the way that it happened, and I'm okay with that. We again thought we had a healthy pregnancy. There were just one little heart defect when we had a fetal echocardiogram. I was 35, considered high risk. Just the first year of that. And so I went to, of course, a high-risk pregnancy center and had regular checkups and, nothing was wrong. We thought we had a healthy pregnancy and uneventful birth. And I was so excited. My second child, that I birthed, I have a 20-year-old stepson, but he's mine.
Yep, I understand.
Been in his life since he was 2.
I have 2 bonus babies. Yep, 29 and 25. I get it.
So, I'd done this before. I wasn't nervous. I was looking forward to it. This was having a little more experience going around this time. So I had a really great birthing experience and everything was fine. After he was born, we did stay in the hospital a couple days because he was a little tachypnic, breathing fast. And so
I've never heard that word, tachypnic.
Tachypnic. It just means fast breathing. And so they put him in the NICU, which was scary because I'd never had a NICU baby before.
What hospital?
It was actually Atrium Health University. So
in Charlotte.
In Charlotte, exit 18. We weren't at CMCC Main, so it was a smaller hospital because we weren't expecting any, serious issues. So they have a small NICU, and they observed him for 24 hours and thought that he had a little inflammation. They gave him Flonase, put him back in our room, watched him for another 24 hours, and we went home.
Yeah.
And they said once the inflammation went down, that his breathing would get better. And so we're home and he's breastfeeding well. He's eating everything. There's no red flags. He's doing really well, except for this fast breathing. And, as a mom, you kind of know, like, something's not right. This is not normal.
So how long are we into this now? Home a week, home a day, home a month?
So we were in the hospital for almost a week, I guess like 5 days. And then by 2 weeks, his 2-week pediatrician follow-up was when we were really scared. We almost went to the emergency room the day before. We had a lot of questions. Why isn't this getting better? It wasn't getting worse, but it wasn't getting better. And so at his 2-week pediatrician appointment, they were weighing him on the scale and looked at him. And the doctor had seen him obviously in the hospital the week before. And she's like, you know what? I would just feel better if you all went to Levine Children's Hospital. So they called an ambulance. We went to Levine. And we didn't leave for 6 months.
Wow. Okay. So when you leave the hospital and they know that there is an issue with the breathing, do they leave you with like a heart rate monitor or anything to monitor his breath, or you just have to look at your baby?
No.
And was he like panting? Like, what did that look like on the surface?
Yeah, it was, it wasn't quite a pant. It was just faster than a normal baby would breathe.
Could you feel his heartbeat? On his chest at that point?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, because we were obviously checking and doing, all the things, but it seemed normal other than he was just breathing fast, and we just thought it was about this inflammation.
Okay.
We were there for almost a week, and they discharged us, and so we're, trusting that everything's fine and it is going to get better. And, we're adjusting to new baby life. My daughter's 14, so I hadn't had a newborn in 14 years.
What's your daughter's name, by the way? Riley. And your stepson?
Is Tristan.
Okay. Now, how are you handling this? Because I know when if my dog even has a puppy dream, ask my husband, I have a nervous breakdown. How are you dealing with this at this point? Are you like calm, cool, like, oh, he'll be fine? Or are you kind of freaking out?
First day, I think all of the excitement, I wasn't as concerned. As the days went on and we got closer to that 2 weeks, I was really concerned. And, looking back, I wish we would have taken him to the hospital, although, it happened the way it happened. But I was definitely getting fearful at that point.
Okay. Birth, C-section or regular?
Regular.
Yeah. Not that C-sections are irregular, but I don't want to use the V word. I don't feel like saying it right now. Okay. So this is a great place for us to pause. So you go to the pediatrician and right away they say, we're going to send you guys right to Levine's Children's Hospital. On that note, guys, don't go away. We will see you in just a few on The Good Soul, episode 27, A Mom and Her Warrior Baby. This segment of The Good Soul is brought to you by Aaron Fisnick, certified luxury home specialist with Ivester Jackson, Christie's International Real Estate. Aaron serves all levels of the greater Lake Norman region real estate market, and whether buying or selling, she is very much the lady who will deliver like no other. Many of us at Good Soul are also really happy clients. Aaron can be reached at 704-728-5657 or reach out to me and I'll get you guys connected. Thank you, Aaron Fisnick, and thank you guys for tuning in and supporting The Good Soul. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Good Soul. We are on episode 27, and this is titled A Mom and Her Hero Baby. Christine Patterson, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your story, because this is really special. It's something that I do not take lightly, and it is my sincere hope that I do justice. I can ask you all the right questions, because not only for your sake, because I think talking about these things reminds us as not only women, but as humans, that we're not alone, and all the people in the world that support you, but also, as we said in the first segment, people are like, I could never do that. Well, of course you can, right? Yeah. Just to inspire people. So thank you again for sharing your story. I'm really grateful for you being here.
Yeah, thanks.
So we left off on the first segment where that Silas's breathing was heavy. He was 2 weeks old at this point. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, his breathing was rapid.
Yes,
right? He was breathing quickly. They went for their 2-week well visit to the pediatrician, who then put you in an ambulance and sent you right over to Levine's Children's Hospital. So pick up where I left off.
Yes. So obviously at that point we're terrified, and, rode in the ambulance to the hospital, left our car. I mean, everything's just, scary at that point. And we get to the hospital, and obviously getting, doing intake and running all kinds of tests. Within 24 hours, we were in the ICU, and he had coded for 4 minutes. And
why?
They didn't know. He stopped breathing. And I think back to that, what if we had been at home?
Well, that was my good me. I might ask you some weird questions, but like, these are the things that would pop into my mind. Like, what the hell did you do that made him code? But no offense to any NICU nurse, doctor. I think you guys I hold them in the highest regard, but that would be, so can anybody answer that?
I think it was just looking back now, after we learned his diagnosis, which I'll tell you in a minute, it was amazing that everyone has told us it's amazing that he made it that long without coding. And so, he has this code, his, heart stops breathing. I mean, it's get the epi, the compressions, everything. Mm-hmm. That moment is probably the most terrifying thing that I've ever done. I don't wish that on anyone. It's horrible.
You were there. You're in the room.
Right. And it's like quiet. I didn't really even realize what was happening, because they were examining him, and they came in, the doctor was examining his airway, and he was doing a scope procedure. And so he was looking in his airway, and he stopped breathing. And so all of a sudden, all these people start coming in the room, and I look up, and there's like 15 doctors in the room. And a nurse came over to me, and she's like, you might want to step out. And, I'm asking what's going on.
Did you hear like boop or anything like that?
No, because at that time he had just got up to ICU, and they barely had him hooked up to the monitors. There was so much, and maybe it was, I don't remember that,
Okay.
It was just sheer terror.
So you're in the pediatrician's, and you get to Levine, and they move him to ICU. Is this all on the same day that he codes?
Yes, within 24 hours. So it was like that early that next morning. And, when you're living in the hospital, time is weird, because you don't really know days.
I've been
and
there. Yeah, I've never been there with a child, but I was there with my parents, specifically my dad.
I think it was early that next morning, because it was within that first day, because we had went on a regular floor, and he wasn't getting better. They were giving him oxygen. And so we quickly progressed to the ICU. And we hadn't been to ICU any time, and he coded. And I'm glad we were in ICU when that happened. There are so many points along this child's story that it's just, you can see God intervening, and so lucky that
the timing.
So obviously at that point they started looking further into his case and trying to understand what was happening, because he was not stable at that point. And so after he coded, they had to intubate him. So he had a tube down his throat. He was on a ventilator. That's when all the machines came in and the medication started, and he was sedated.
That must have been a nightmare for you to look at.
And not having answers at that point was the scariest, I think, because we didn't know what was wrong. They were testing him for everything under the sun, and nothing was coming back. And so, we were there for probably at least another 3 or 4 days until we really started to get answers. And then we quickly started to get answers, and that's, when our world just fell apart. We were definitely scared up in that moment, but then it just, when you get the diagnosis, it seems real,
Okay, so before you have the answers for 3-4 days. They're
Yeah.
saying to you, we have no idea. Are they speculating with certain things? And are you going on Google and like WebMD and looking at everything?
Yeah. They had no idea. They just were testing, we're going to try to rule this out. We're going to try to rule that out. It was really just a process of elimination at that point.
Right. Okay.
Until we got there.
So take me then to the diagnosis. Did a special, what is it? I guess I'm assuming it's some type of cardiologist.
So we had 5 different specialties involved in his case because, again, they weren't sure what was wrong, and he was having issues with, multiple organs at that point. And so we had cardiology, we had pulmonology, we had nephrology, we had endocrinologist at that point, ENT.
What is nephrology?
Kidneys. So we found out after his scans started coming back and they did MRIs and ultrasounds that he had biliary atresia, which is when the bile ducts on your liver do not fully form and your gallbladder doesn't fully form. This is one of his diagnoses. He had an even rare version of biliary atresia because his bile ducts didn't form at all on his liver. So the bile had nowhere at all to drain out. So, most biliary atresia patients can go, sometimes the first few years of life before they have to have a liver transplant. His liver, by the time they got to transplant, he was 1 year old when he got a new liver. And his liver was so black, the doctor said it was worse than an alcoholic that has drank all his life. Because at 1 year old.
So the bile is building up in his liver and it has nowhere to go.
Right.
Where does bile come from? And what's the purpose? Is that something you can answer?
Yeah,
I'm sure you know all
a little
this.
bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, answer for the layperson, because if you knew a lot, you'd probably bore us anyway.
Yeah,
so keep it simple.
The liver, obviously, is responsible for filtering. It's our filter system for our body. So it processes things that we intake and filters that out. And when that bile and that gunk doesn't have a place to go, then it just backs up, and that's what causes cirrhosis. In your liver. That's what the scarring is that bile. It's not filtering properly. It's not functioning properly. Okay. And then the gallbladder obviously is tied to that as well. And so Silas, that rare version of biliary atresia that he had where he didn't have any bile ducts in his liver, he also did not have a gallbladder at all. Now, that's okay. I have my gallbladder removed. I don't have one. But it just added to the issue. He had no gallbladder. We also found out during that first week that he had something called heterotaxy, which is when your main 2 organs are swapped and like mirror image. So your liver is on one side of your body and your spleen is on the other side where it's supposed to be. His was a little bit of a different version of heterotaxy because his was more midline than mirror image. So he had these major anatomical issues.
Is it always liver and spleen, or could it be any
heterotaxy typically is just
liver and spleen,
right? But it also involves the heart. So I'm sure there's other versions of heterotaxy that do involve other organs, but it's usually the heart, the liver, and the spleen. And his version of heterotaxy, his heart, it's called a left isomerism. So some of his heart defects that he had were because of that too.
Okay. So Christine, quick question. Mm-hmm. So we find out about the biliary atresia?
Biliary atresia.
Biliary atresia. Now, is that addressed and fixed before they figure out the heterotaxy, or?
No, we find out all of this at the same time.
All at one time. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So they diagnosed him with heterotaxy, biliary atresia, polysplenia.
What is that?
So instead of having one normal size spleen, he has 10 smaller spleens. So
how common is all of these things?
Very rare.
And none of them are related?
Well, the last diagnosis, but not really. So Silas is one of 5 babies in the world to have what he has, but he's the only baby in the world to have the constellation of illnesses that he has. So
the constellation
yes,
of illnesses.
We went to see a world-renowned geneticist at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
Sure, CHOP, of course.
Dr. Z, and she, was able to to look at his case, and she found the 5 other babies. The problem is most babies with his issue don't have these life-threatening illnesses, and he did, and that's what makes his version of this very rare. So we got diagnosed with, the biliary atresia, the heterotaxy, the polysplenia. He had 4 heart defects, an ASD, a VSD, an interrupted IVC with a zygous continuation, and an IRVC, inner chamber right ventricle, ICVR. VSD, ASD are 2 most common defects. Those are, it's open heart surgery, but as open heart surgery goes, it's an easy surgery.
Okay.
The other ones were a little more complicated. So we found out he has this. A month later after that, we found out.
This is 5.
After the genetic testing came back, we found that he had something called 18p deletion syndrome, which meant the short arm of his 18th chromosome was missing. That's what he has, that he's 1 in 5 babies in the world to have this version of that chromosome abnormality that causes these life-threatening illnesses. But he's the only one to have this version like he does. Basically, all of his doctors say he's writing his own story.
Okay.
He doesn't do anything by the book.
Yeah.
It's hard to know. You don't know what to expect.
Okay, so I'm a lady, and Justin won't let me curse on the air, so I'm just going to say, what in the serious F? Yeah. Wow. Oh, my God, this is a lot. So we have identified all 5 things that are going on in our warrior Silas's sweet little body. In the next segment, we're going to go through each of them, and you're going to tell us how we're combating all of this. So, again, a billion thanks for sharing this story. Yeah. Oh, my God. And for inspiring us all. We'll see you guys for the 3rd segment on The Good Soul. This segment of The Good Soul is brought to you by Aaron Fisnick, certified luxury home specialist with Ivester Jackson, Christie's International Real Estate. Aaron serves all levels of the greater Lake Norman area real estate market, and whether buying or selling, she is very much someone I want in my corner. Aaron prioritizes building strong client relationships based on trust and authenticity. Manny and I should know, having purchased our land through her. She can be reached at 704-728-5657 or reach out to me and I'll get you guys connected. Thank you, Aaron Fisnick, and thank you guys for tuning in and supporting The Good Soul. Oh, how we love that. All right, everybody, welcome back to The Good Soul. I am Patty Alvarez. I am here with Christine Patterson. I am Mrs. Manny Alvarez, and I'm here with Christine Patterson. I gave my husband some props. Sorry. Anyway, we are talking something pretty major. We just went through the 5 major challenges that baby Silas, not a baby anymore, he's toddler Silas, is dealing with. And I thought it was interesting what Christine said to me, because we kind of between segments go through how we're going to handle this. And she said, what I really want to share is the journey to getting help. So I'm sure you've all been in a place. I was talking about, loving an alcoholic, dealing with somebody who has mental illness. And where do you go? Well, we won't take the, rehab. We won't take them if they're drunk. Send them to the ER, we won't take them if they're suicidal. Send them there. It's so hard. So enlighten us.
Yeah. So, we get these big major diagnoses.
5 major diagnoses.
5 major. And we spent 6 months.
And excuse me 1 second. At this point, he's not even a month old.
No.
Okay.
I mean, he's 2 weeks old.
Imagine that.
Diagnosis. We're not able to hold him. He's sedated. He's intubated. I can't even hold my own newborn. I can't feed him. I was breastfeeding. I mean, all of the
Were
emotions.
You breastfeeding?
Oh, yeah.
So you just had to pump?
Yeah.
Only pump?
Only pump.
And you're dealing with your, everything healing and
we're in a hospital. Yeah. And we're living there. My husband and I, my daughter stayed with her grandmother, and, we stayed every night in the hospital. My husband, who Silas ended up being in there a year and a half, stayed every night in the hospital.
I just got an instant lump in my throat when you say that.
It was crazy.
But Stephen, correct?
Yes, Stephen. We get these diagnoses, and Silas had this breathing issue because of his anatomical issues. So that was the thing that the doctors were so confused about, is all of his diagnoses never explained the breathing issue. So this breathing issue always held us up. And so
number 4, the heart defects?
Nothing. I mean, they would blame it on the heart, and the cardiologist would say, it's not the heart. We kept hearing that. And so we finally had to make the decision to get him a tracheotomy, to have a tracheotomy, to get a tracheostomy. They inserted the tube. So instead of being intubated, he has the hole in his throat, which
still
the tube
does.
is inserted. He still does. And he needed to be on a ventilator. He's not on a ventilator anymore.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's good. We should be getting the trach out in the next 6 months, we hope.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so that's
and
good
just
news.
know, guys, that he's going to be 3 years old on Saturday.
Yeah,
Saturday.
so
That's
excited.
so awesome. Okay.
But we had to make this decision. So at 2 months old, he got a trach. And that was the only way for him to be a baby. And it sounds really bad. And I always say, I hashtag all my social media posts, hashtag keep calm. It's only a trach.
Yeah.
Because I think people see this as like, oh, that poor baby, he has a trach. But that trach helped him live a normal life. Like that kid's a normal toddler because of that trach. And yes, would I prefer him not to have it? Of course. But he does. And it's helping him be a kid.
He's alive. Yeah.
So, it's a good trade-off.
I'll take a baby with a trach.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
That's fine.
We had to learn how to take care of him. So we were in the hospital for 6 months. 3 months of that was really just us moving to the progressive care floor, which is a step down from ICU, learning how to care for him and getting trained to be his nurses at home. Because tracheotomy care is, it has to be clean. It has to be, sterile.
It's just for breath, not food.
Right. And so that's a great question. So he also had to get a G tube, which is a gastronomy tube, inserted in his stomach for
so you
eating.
feed him almost like with a syringe?
So we can, but he just has a feeding pump. And so it just kind of goes, it's timed. But he can now eat baby food by mouth.
Oh, great.
And so we're trying to get him enough calories so we can wean off of the feeding tube as well. But at that time, we got both of those, equipment installed. We always said we ordered a wireless baby, but that's not what we got. We have a wired baby. So we're hoping to upgrade soon to the wireless.
Cute. That's all right. Technology has been fascinating these days.
So we were in the hospital for 6 months learning how to do all of this.
Is that an occupational therapist? Is that the formal name of the person who's working with you, or is there?
We saw OT, PT, speech and feeding therapy. We had music therapy. We have all the therapies. But OT is one of them. Yes.
Okay.
And he gets those at home too. They come to our house. He has therapy every day. We have home nursing, so we have a nurse every day during the day. We have a night nurse.
Spends the night at the house with you.
We don't have to. We don't always have nursing. There's a nationwide nursing shortage, so obviously we don't have a nurse a lot of times. But we're trained to care for him. We just have also other children and work and jobs that do that. So nursing is very helpful. I'm glad that we have some nursing. So we learned how to take care of him, and then we go home. We discharge from the hospital. This is, he's 6 months old at this point. It was terrifying because, you plan on taking a healthy baby home, and now you have this, baby that needs all of this care, and you're not really sure what you're going to be like in a home environment because you've been in this sterile hospital environment for so long.
Yes. Can I ask you one quick question? So 1 to 6 months, has he had surgeries? What kind of surgeries has he been through?
So at 1 month old, he had, they call it a Kasai procedure, and it's to try to hold off transplant for as long as possible with the liver. So they go in, and I'm not exactly sure what they do, but it's to try to get that bile to drain at least partially.
I was going to ask you that in the second segment.
Yes.
Can they do that manually?
Yeah, that's at one month old. Most Kasai procedures fail is the problem.
Oh, wow.
Some buy you a little time, but in his case, because he had that rare version, it was even less of a chance. I think he had like a 20% chance of it working. So he had that. He also had the surgery to install the tracheotomy. So he had 2 surgeries up to that point. So when we got discharged, we knew that we were going home to wait on his liver to fail so we could get a transplant. There was nothing they could do at that point. There was no sense keeping him in the hospital. We could care for him at home. We were trained to do so. Not all families go home. Some families don't feel comfortable and they stay in the hospital. We felt comfortable. We went home. We didn't know how long it was going to take for his liver to fail, but we thought that we would come back and we would have a liver transplant. And we knew he would also need open heart surgery. We knew he would have to have open heart surgery before they would do the transplant because he he wouldn't survive the transplant until he had a corrected heart. So we knew these big 2 surgeries were coming up. When we got discharged, we're just waiting for that to happen.
So they tell you what it's going to look like when his liver starts to fail?
Of course. We have,
warning signs and
to
this
look out
and that.
for,
And that.
which
Okay.
were all terrifying as well. And,
sure. I could only imagine.
So we were having some surgical appointments with like the cardiologist to prepare for this heart surgery that we were going to have before transplant. We were supposed to have the transplant done at Duke Children's Hospital because Levine didn't transplant babies that little. And so that was the plan. And that's what we were sticking to. So finally we get word from the cardiologist at Levine that he was too complex and they were not going to do his surgery. And so we were shocked because we didn't know that was even an option.
Yeah.
Because he has to have this surgery.
Yeah. Where do you turn at this point?
Right. So they said, go to Duke. They're going to do the transplant anyway. Have them evaluate the heart. They can do everything there. We're like, okay. So we go to Duke. We check in for 2 weeks to get evaluated. They were doing lung biopsies and all kinds of tests for 2 weeks. And I felt like it was just making him sicker because at that point, his liver was failing. He was in like stage 2 or 3 liver failure at that point. And, we were getting closer and closer. Duke ultimately comes back and says, nope, we're not going to do either surgeries. He's too complex.
And do they have a liver located at this point?
No.
Okay, so not only they say no.
They say he's too complex. We're not going to do either surgery. So at that point, we had been seeking a second referral from CHOP, which is one of the best Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So we're like, okay, we'll go to CHOP. We'll get evaluated. Surely they'll do it. They're this huge, one of the top 3 hospitals in the U.S. We go to CHOP. We get evaluated. They declined to do both surgeries.
Wow.
And so we were just defeated.
Okay, we're gonna hit pause. We're gonna leave everybody on a cliffhanger, not to make light of this because it's pretty flippin' serious. But we will return, and I'm anxious to hear how this story concludes. So, guys, we'll see you for segment 4 on The Good Soul. Don't go away. This segment of The Good Soul is brought to you by Aaron Fisnick, certified luxury home specialist with Ivester Jackson Christie's International Real Estate. Erin's not only an amazing agent, but she's also an amazing friend to me with a diverse mix of happy Lake Norman clients, each with their very own unique circumstance and challenge. She's a one-of-a-kind boss lady who I endorse wholeheartedly. Erin can be reached at 704-728-5657 or reach out to me and I'll get you guys connected. Thank you, Aaron Fisnick, for adding your magic to all of your real estate transactions. And thank you guys for tuning into and supporting the show. We are eternally grateful. Mwah. Big kisses. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Good Soul, episode 27, A Mom and Her Warrior Baby. That sweet baby's name is Silas, and his mother is Christine Patterson. He's one lucky boy to have you, that's for sure. I wish I could meet your husband also. One of these days.
Yes.
One of these days.
Yes.
All right, so we left off. We have a lot to cover. We left off where not 1, not 2, but 3 hospitals turned down treating Silas for basically at this point his heart and his liver. So where do we go from here? We're at CHOP in Pennsylvania. Right.
So at that point, it's an 8-hour drive. So that last trip was really hard.
You're exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally.
And it was, I did not think that he would survive another trip, another evaluation.
So you would have to put him in the car and drive him there.
Right. We were trying to get the angel flights that but a lot of times they'll only do it for transplant. And so,
I know somebody locally who does that.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And we did not end up using them, but I'm so glad that service, exists. So at that point, we switched to kind of cold calling hospitals.
Okay. Can I just hit pause for 1 second? Guys, just think about, I remember my friend Hillary, this was way pre-COVID, used to have people wear masks to hold her baby, her healthy baby. I mean, the car seats, the things we do. I mean, with babies with no issues.
Right.
You just motor through this.
Oh, yeah.
You just motor. I'll say it again. God doesn't give us anything we can't handle. I'm sorry to interrupt. No. So you just start code calling hospitals.
Yes. And we had a spreadsheet. My family divided it up. We researched hospitals that had transplant centers and heart centers. And we just made a list. We divided them up. We started cold calling the centers. Mm-hmm. And hoping to hear from somebody. We had virtual evaluations from Cincinnati Children's, from Nationwide Children's, from Vanderbilt, Texas Children's, and they all turned us down. So we were sending medical records. We were having these calls with them. They were examining them virtually. It was, this whole thing. We got turned down, I think ultimately by 10 different hospitals. And then one of our cold calls was to UPMC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. And I was so relieved when I got the call that they said, we will try to help him. Bring him here. Bring him here on Monday.
My whole left leg is one big.
I broke down. But I was also angry because the fact that I didn't know that they were the number one pediatric transplant center in the U.S. and that no one told me that.
Why do you think that is?
That's an issue. And
competition?
So, I don't know.
Liability?
I would love to know.
I would pick up the phone and call every person I talked to and would say that. Right. Why wouldn't you have told me that?
And I got invited to be on the parents advocate board for Levine Children's Hospital. And when I have time one day, I would love to do that. And that's what I would love to advocate for is for when doctors can't help, for them advocating more for patients to find the help they need, even if it's not at your center. Because we didn't get that help. And I mean, our doctor, our gastroenterologist basically looked and said, there's nothing else I can do. And I asked for referrals at that point, and we didn't get that referral.
Yeah.
And so
I think it's a career. Angry. It's understandable. That's a career. There's a business book called The E-Myth, and it talks about you could be wonderful at baking a cake. Does not mean that you are equipped to own a bakery. Yeah. You could be a wonderful doctor, but it doesn't mean you're equipped to advise people in certain instances. And that I believe in patient advocacy I think that's definitely something that, I don't know, I'm sure there's a market for it already, or there's people who do it already. I feel like that's a market. Okay. So I digress.
So we finally got the word from UPMC that they would help. We got in the car on the Monday. We drove up there. And ultimately, they did his heart surgery. They agreed to do his transplant. To summarize a very long story, I mean, we were there for a year. We just picked up and basically moved to Pittsburgh for a year. I was working virtually. My job obviously was amazing to work with. But,
wow. COVID.
I had support.
And then COVID is that.
So this is
2021
right after COVID
is when he was born, right? 2021.
August 2021. So it's right at the, COVID's still happening.
People were still COVID kooky then.
Yeah. We were the only two allowed in the hospital at that point.
Oh, there's that whole other layer.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
This is a crazy time. Our daughter wasn't even allowed to come. They snuck her in on Christmas Eve and let her sleep with us. Like we had so many great nurses. And,
always.
Adjusting to hospital life was hard, especially during, a pandemic. So,
but I always say that when he's in the hospital.
Yeah. So we lived there for a year, and he, ultimately did get the heart surgery. Very soon after heart surgery, within about 30 days, he really started going downhill. And that was the dark part of the story.
Wow.
That was the
I
worst.
Wasn't expecting this.
He, it was right before liver transplant. The issue is when his liver started to fail, he was too sick to be listed on the liver transplant list. It was, I don't think people understand how touch and go it really was. And what you also don't understand is that you're being asked to do these living donor campaigns by the hospital. And so, I'm a private person. I used to be a private person in general. I'm not anymore, but they're asking you, go out and post on social media and ask people to give a portion of their liver to your son. How do you ask someone that?
Yeah.
Hey, can I borrow
I would happily. Liver? I'm telling you right now, ask my husband. I would give somebody my arm if they needed it.
And that's amazing that people like that exist. Yeah. I guess the first blow, let me back up, was that my husband and I were not matches and could not donate, because in our head the whole time is, we'll donate our liver.
It could be donated by an adult?
Yes, if it's the right size, a small stature adult, yes, for a baby. But it's harder to find an adult for a baby.
Like Shaq probably couldn't give his, but yes. Okay, but I could.
Silas could not take Shaq's liver.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
But you're on the deceased donor list. Listed on the UNOS transplant list, but they are actively trying to get you to promote this living donor campaign, because that's the easiest way, and they have higher success rate. And so I'd reached out to Molly Grantham who, was an anchor on WBTV News. Of course, now she's retired. And she shared Silas's story on Molly's Kids. And that story made it all the way down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where a lady saw it, a complete stranger, and decided that she wanted to donate a portion of her liver to Silas.
I'm looking for a napkin for both.
I know.
I'm sorry.
It was amazing. And
how old?
She's 50 years old.
God bless. What is her name?
The cutoff is 51. Michelle Pothier.
Michelle Pothier.
She is actually.
God bless your soul.
And she's actually coming to our house this weekend for Silas's birthday party.
Oh my God!
This is the third time that she's flown to see us, and I cannot even fathom how amazing that she is. And she donated her kidney 5 years before this
to somebody. Well, I have to tell you, I'm going to be as quick as I can because I know we're running out of time, but I love seeing the stories where somebody donated their heart and the family member meets the person and can hug them. I'm getting emotional.
I know.
I'm not going to cry. We just lost a beautiful family friend to suicide on Saturday morning. A budding, beautiful, incredible young man named Caden Harris. Beautiful inside out, but he did his hero's walk on Tuesday, where they wheeled him through the hospital. Yes. And think of all the lives he's going to save. It's hard to take away from the pain of losing him, and our friend and their daughter dated him. Oh, it's devastating. But
organ donation is so important.
Everybody, there's no excuse.
And donating blood. I mean, Silas probably got more than 50 blood transfusions in the hospital. We do blood drives here every 56 days through the Red Cross, and it's so easy to make a difference. I mean, look at this. Look at this example. So, I mean, had he not had so we have an amazing relationship with her. It was immediate, the improvement after he got the new liver. It was just touch and go. He'd be off the list. He wouldn't be eligible. He'd be on the list. And finally, there was this short window of time where he was able to take a liver. It happened so fast, and she flew down and got evaluated, and it happened. And now we have this healthy, and he's in Silas's terms.
Relatively speaking. What does his future look like?
So, Silas is developing at Silas's pace. Mm-hmm. He was in a coma for 3 months straight. He was in a hospital for a year and a half. So obviously he's late on his milestones. But there's no reason to think that he won't, do all those normal things. He's about to walk, finally. Obviously a little late, but he
cannot wait to meet this boy.
Yeah. So, he will always have some sort of, he'll need to be seen by his doctors.
He'll be special. Yes.
But
could he go on to live a normal life?
Yeah, fairly normal. We don't know what, his genetic condition, because it's so variable. We don't know what that looks like.
And pardon the expression, because what is normal. Yeah. I'm sorry I even phrased it that way.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I don't think there is a true normal, but our goal as parents is just to help him, reach his full potential and live the best, happiest life he can live. Mm-hmm. And whatever that is, we're okay with.
It seems like already, and I'm going to have to guess that we could do a whole nother episode on all the miracles and magic that you've been kind of faced with and received throughout this journey that you've been on.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming a lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Yes.
Like we always talk about, like with Manny with his MS, thank God that he paid into his disability when he was healthy.
Right.
Your insurance, make sure that you have good health insurance. Yes. Out of state was a challenge from you, from what you said during the break.
Yes, getting coverage, getting insurance to cover these out-of-state hospitals, and them making you jump through hoops to get the coverage. Yes.
All that stuff. Anything else you want to share with us?
I think just that we feel so blessed to have Silas in our lives. I couldn't imagine it any other way. And also that the village of people that, people think, oh, you do this by yourself and I can't believe it. And that is absolutely not true. We have nurses and therapists and doctors. And, I had coworkers mowing my yard while we were gone. And I'm so thankful for that.
I love people.
Yeah.
I love Silas. I love the story. Thank you so much for sharing it with all of us. I still have so many questions. So I'm going to say this again. I feel like I want to have you back on and talk to you more. And I want updates on Silas's life. Absolutely. And I know you all certainly must agree with me. Blessings to you and your family.
You.
God bless all of you. And again, thank you for sharing your story. I'm moved. I'm inspired. And I'm thanking God every day for all the gifts that I've been given in my world. And I hope you all feel the same. So thank you all for being here and showing up for episode 27. And we will see you next week on The Good Soul, where we're going to talk about something, I don't know what. I'm going to make you laugh and smile and sing and dance. But love you guys. See you next time.